Welcome to the Finely Tuned Infrastructure Podcast by Rhythmic Technologies. Today, we're looking at something that's really been shaking things up for developers. We're talking about that big shift in AWS Cognito's M2M billing that's machine to machine. For a lot of folks, hearing about this might bring on, that sinking feeling in your stomach. So M2M authentication, just to be clear, it's really about how your back-end services talk securely to each other. No humans involved, just private conversations between servers. We're going to pull heavily from the analysis in the blog by Rhythmic to understand what's happening here.
Yeah, sinking feeling is probably about right. AWS, they announced this change way back on May 9th, 2024. And back then, they included what seemed like a pretty generous 12-month grace period for anyone already using it.
Right, gave everyone some breathing room, or so it seemed.
Exactly. But, fast forward to May 2025, that grace period, it's gone. And what felt like a reprieve has suddenly become like a ticking time bomb that just detonated. The bills are rolling in now. May 2025 is the moment it got real.
Okay, so definitely not theoretical anymore. People are seeing these charges. Let's get specific then. What does this new pricing actually look like? How are they charging now?
It's got two parts, which is key. First, there's a flat $6 per month charge for every single app client.
An app client being like an identity for each service that needs to talk.
Precisely. Each backend service, each worker, anything that needs its own secure pass via Cognito M2M costs you that $6 a month just to exist. And then on top of that, there's the usage cost. It's 0.00225 for every 1,000 token requests.
So every time a service actually authenticates, basically.
Yep. You pay for the ID badge, and then you pay a tiny bit each time you show the badge.
Wow. Okay, $6 per service plus usage.
Yeah.
That sounds like it could add up really fast, especially if you got, lots of microservices chatting away. Can you walk us through that real-world impact? The blog had a good example.
Yeah, Rhythmic laid it out pretty clearly. Let's picture a fairly standard setup today. Maybe you have an API gateway, say 10 backend microservices doing different things, maybe 5 worker services crunching data, and 3 services talking to outside APIs. Add them up, that's 19 services, 19 things needing M2M authentication.
19 app clients then.
19 app clients. So right away, the app client cost is 19 times $6. That's $114 a month just for them to be configured.
Okay.
Then the tokens, let's be really conservative. Say each service only makes 100 authentication requests a day, which honestly could be low for active services. Over 30 days, that's 19 times 100 times 30.
Yeah.
57,000 requests total.
Right.
At that $028.25. So we're talking, what, 240 something a month?
$242.25 per month, based on that example. And multiply that out. You're looking at almost $3,000 a year.
Wow.
And the point is, that's not pocket change for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Especially when it used to be effectively zero. It's a real budget item now. Yeah, nearly $3,000 a year, basically out of nowhere for something foundational. That's why it stings, isn't it? Because architectures were built assuming this part was free or near enough. Why does this feel so targeted at developers almost?
Well, it fundamentally changes the math for microservices, Yeah. The basic problem is once you're deeply woven into a cloud service like this, getting out is it's painful, it's expensive.
Vendor lock-in, basically.
Pretty much. And developers followed best practices. They separated concerns, built small services, partly because the authentication layer didn't really add per service cost, but this pricing model, it directly taxes that granularity. The more services you have, the more you pay for these app clients. It's kind of ironic, but suddenly maybe a monolith with fewer things needing to authenticate doesn't look quite so bad from purely this cost perspective. It flips the script.
Definitely forces a rethink. Okay, so for companies getting these bills now, what can they actually do? What are the options Rhythmic laid out?
Well, there are a few main routes. Option 1, the simplest, just pay up.
Accept it as the cost of doing business.
Exactly. Budget for it, move on. And honestly, given how complex the alternatives can be, a lot of teams might just do this. Option 2 is consolidate services. Try to merge things together to reduce the number of those $6 app clients. Like maybe combine several notification services into one bigger one.
But that goes against the microservice idea. Right?
Oh, it absolutely does. You save money, potentially, but you might lose that agility, that independent deployment capability. It's a significant architectural trade-off.
Okay, what else? Building your own seems like a massive step.
It is. That's option 3. Build your own M2M off. If you're huge, maybe it's cheaper long-term. But the development time, the ongoing maintenance, the scaling, and, oh God, the security risks, Auth is hard to get right. One mistake can be disastrous. It's a really high-risk path.
Yeah, security is not something you want to DIY lightly.
Definitely not. Option 4 is switch providers. Look for other auth services with maybe a better M2M pricing structure. But migration is always a headache. Re-architecting, recoding. Plus, who's to say the next provider won't hike prices later?
You could just be kicking a can down the road.
You could. And finally, option 5 is sort of a hybrid approach. Keep Cognito for your human users. The free tier there is still pretty good, but maybe build or use something much simpler, maybe even custom, just for the internal M2M stuff.
Adds complexity, managing 2 systems, but could save cash.
Right. It's balancing complexity against cost savings, a strategic decision.
This whole situation feels like, well, like a teachable moment, I guess. What are the big lessons here for developers, for architects looking at this?
I think the biggest one is about that word free in the cloud.
Yeah.
When a provider offers something for free, you really need to ask, okay, what's the catch?
Because there usually is one.
There usually is. Often the catch is once you're a dependent, the price changes. There's just no free lunch, ultimately. These are businesses. And that 12-month grace period, it wasn't a gift. It was your migration window.
Yeah, that's a key insight from the blog.
If you didn't use that year to evaluate, maybe adjust, you're paying now. Any grace period needs to be treated as a deadline for action. And third, I'd say when designing systems now, you have to think about potential future pricing, not just today's costs. Factor in the risk that the cheap service today might not be cheap tomorrow. Build with that possibility in mind.
It's easy to dwell on the negative, the unexpected bill. Is there any silver lining or just a broader way to view this in the cloud landscape?
I think so. Look, AWS Cognito is still a powerful service. It handles a ton of complex stuff for you. And this new pricing, while maybe unwelcome, if you compare it to building and securing your own auth system from scratch, well, maybe $200, $300, $500 a month isn't actually unreasonable for what you get.
Perspective, yeah. The cost of DIY is often hidden, but huge.
Exactly. So step 1 is breathe. Evaluate your situation carefully. Run the numbers before making huge changes. And if you're building something new today, factor M2M costs in from the very beginning. Maybe that means you design with fewer services. Maybe you choose a different auth approach entirely. But plan for it.
So it influences design right from the start now.
It has to. And zoom out further, this is just the cloud market maturing, isn't it? The days of crazy, generous free tiers, loss leader pricing to get you hooked, that era seems to be fading. Services are becoming more like utilities. You pay for what you use.
Makes sense.
Which means architects now need to build systems that aren't just technically sound, but also economically sustainable. You have to think about the cost trajectory over time.
Right. So the clear message is that free ride for back-end authentication, it's over. The bill's here. But like you said, smart planning, smart architecture, maybe even questioning how many microservices you really need can help you build great systems without, breaking the bank. Right. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How lean can we actually make our architectures moving forward? And just so you know, this conversation was actually generated using AI. You can check out the original blog post this was based on and find more insights over at rhythmictech.com.